Hello, and welcome to this session on the science of meditation, how to engineer your mind and heart for life upliftment. My name is James Joseph. I've been a meditator for last 30 years plus, and I am a trainer with the Heartfulness Institute. The purpose of today's session is to explore and understand the science behind meditation. Meditation has been accepted by the general public as a way to reduce stress, to improve peace of mind, to increase a level of happiness. But the scientific community has just about started recognizing meditation as a way to improve our state of mind. In fact, in the last 20 to 30 years, um, a lot of brain studies have been done, a lot of neuroscience has developed in different ways. And they have studied the brain functions of long-term meditators using EEGs and fMRI machines. And what they have found is amazing. They have, they have found that the regions of the brain associated with happiness, with compassion, with joy, and even productivity have substantially increased for people who are long-term meditators. And I'm sure you must have heard about Matthew Ricard, uh, who whose brain or the part of his brain associated with happiness lighted up so much that they have named him the happiest man on earth. Yet, with all this development, science has just about scratched the surface of meditation, because meditation is a very vast, complex subject, as you will see in the course of my presentation. Many sciences have to come together, including neuroscience, biology, physics, and of course, quantum physics, to really fully comprehend meditation. And it is important to note that meditation predates science. After all, modern science is just about 300 to 400 years old. And the human species, the Homo sapiens, have been around for more than 300,000 years. It is with the development of the neocortex that the humans have, been able to observe themselves, or the gift of self-awareness, or the ability to uh, you know uh, see themselves, or the reflexive action of the mind. That became possible with the emergence of the neocortex, which is uh, what distinguishes the human species from other species and other beings. But it took almost 13.7 billion years of evolution after the Big Bang to come to this level of brain, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of evolution, at least for the moment. I will say that because recently I read a report that the data coming in from the Kepler telescopes or the Kepler telescope indicates that there could be more than 41 billion planets like the Earth in our galaxy, the Milky Way. So maybe one day we will come across, maybe many years later, a species whose brains are more evolved than ours. But at this point of time, we are the most advanced. So in this In this session, we will not only explore the science of meditation, because science will take a long time to explore and completely understand meditation, but also some of the metaphysical aspects of meditation based on the experiences of people who have meditated for a long while. Now, before I move any further, I would like to make a statement that meditation is available to everybody. We all have the innate ability to meditate. It is not the private property of any specific religion or tradition or region from the world. People have meditated probably more than 300,000 years. Uh, and and therefore, uh, it is something that is available, or the birthright of all of humanity. Yet it is still not available to the common man because of two primary misunderstandings. One is that it is difficult. This, when we believe something is difficult, it can become a mental block. It can cause a certain amount of resistance. And I will explain to you why it is not at all difficult. It is, in fact, very easy to practice meditation. Probably the myth that it is difficult was spread by people who wanted to keep it to themselves for gain, for money, or whatever it is, or power. And the second misunderstanding is that it might interfere with other things that we do, like spiritual, like other religious practices. But it has been now established that meditation is very neutral. It is not based on any particular religion or faith. It is something to enhance the mind, the capabilities of the mind, and therefore it will only help in whatever other practices that we engage in. And it may comfort us to know that almost all the great founders of the religious traditions, of the great religious traditions, they have there is evidence that all of them have meditated. So meditation is a good thing, and everybody can practice meditation. Now, before we go any further, I would invite all of you to participate in this session with all your being. Present moment awareness is one of the requirements of meditation. It is one of the skills that is required in meditation, because meditation is all about training our attention. You will notice that at any moment of time your attention is wandering from one thing to the other, because we have almost 80,000 thoughts a day. This propensity for the attention to jump from one thing to the other has a name for it. In fact, the Buddha called it the monkey mind. And so in order to meditate, we need to learn to find out where our attention is and focus it on one subject or one object. So there are many ways in which we can focus our attention on one thing. And one of those methods is by paying attention to the breath. If you pay attention to the breath, it is possible to achieve a single pointed awareness. But today I'm going to talk about a much more powerful method, the method of focusing on the heart. It is a very powerful way not only to focus our attention, but also get very deep into meditation in the shortest possible time. So with that, I would request all of you to take a moment, gather your attention, and gently place it on your heart. Just become aware of your heart, that gentle presence. It's a field of energy. And we'll talk about it a little more. But for the moment, just make a thought, place an intention that your entire attention is focused on your heart, through the course of this session. So, why meditation matters? For any inquiry into the nature of reality, into the nature of existence, it starts with some fundamental questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Who is going to help me? Where can I get help? Humanity has been, human beings have been asking these questions from the dawn of civilization. And those few lucky individuals who got the answers to these questions, we call them enlightened masters. They have self-realized beings, and they have been able to pass on their knowledge and their wisdom and their experiences to aspiring seekers. But the this is not available to all. For us, we can start with the fundamental question of, what do I want? What is it that I want? If you ask anybody, what do you want? The typical answers you will get are, I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy, I want to be famous, and I want to have a large following on social media. Well, if you probe a little further, you will probably get the answer that I want to be happy. I want to be happy and fulfilled. So then if you ask the question, so where is happiness? Is it somewhere outside of us? And that seems to be the prevalent thinking, the prevalent assumption, that it is outside of us. So we seek it in pleasures, in desires, in objects, in people, in experiences, and then find out that it is not true. It does not give you happiness. The more you have, the more you want. And all of us know that from our own experiences and the experiences of others who have tried it. So, where really is happiness? Where can we find it? And how we can find it is the question that we have to explore. And we all know intuitively that happiness is within us, that it is in our own mind, that it is an inside job. So that begs the question, what is the mind? So the mind is made up of, or we associate the mind with the brain. There's a lot of confusion between what is the mind, what is the brain. Some people think the mind is the brain. Some people think brain is the mind. And some people think that the mind comes from the brain. But there are many people who now believe that the brain comes from the mind. So which of it is true? So let us explore that for a few minutes. So what is the brain, first of all? The brain is, we have about 100 billion neurons in our system. So the brain is made up of these neurons, the neural connections, majority of which, or a great amount of which, is present in the head region, and the rest of it is spread across the entire human system. The network of the neural network, and these neural networks, they capture everything that we feel, that we think, that we learn. So it is continuously and dynamically changing every moment of time, right? So it is not a fixed thing. It is continuously changing. Now the mind is the field. One of the best ways to explain is that the mind is the field created by the brain, or it is a mirror image of the brain. So if the mind is the hardware, or the brain is the hardware, I'm sorry, the mind is the software. So any change that that is reflected in our neural network is also simultaneously reflected in our mind. So if there's a change here, there's a change there, and it is continuously feeding each other. So if there's a change in our mind, it also changes our neural network. So this is a very complex relationship, but it is also a very powerful relationship for us to understand. So the question is, if the mind is the digital image of the brain, then what is its purpose? It's a field. So everything that is stored in the neural network is also stored in the mind. And if you really want to change ourselves, we need to change our brain, our neural network. But how do we change our neural network? We can't take a screwdriver, get into our neural networks. We have 100 billions of them, and each of these have the ability to, wire itself in 4,000 different ways. So just imagine the number of connections that we have. It is more than all the atoms put together in the universe. So therefore, to really bring about change, we have to change the software, the programming, the code, which is in the mind. So meditation is the secret, is the science, is the technology of bringing about change in the mind. Now that begs the question, where is the mind? Where is it located? So we know the brain is located here in our physical body, but the mind is a quantum wave. So if the mind is quantum, if it is a field, then it is dispersed into the universe, into a different dimension of existence, right? And so if the mind is dispersed into a different dimension of existence, it is not only the individual mind, but all the individual minds are known local. The brain is local, the mind is known local. So therefore, the minds of all people are also connected, just like the worldwide web, right? So like the internet. So if you use the analogy of the cloud, cloud as in data storage, we know that our computers and our smartphones are connected to the cloud. When we download music, we are not downloading it from our phone, we are downloading it from the cloud. So too from the internet. So too the movies that we watch on our television. So the mind is akin to that. It is not residing, here, right here. It is a signal-less process. It is a very mysterious connection between the brain and the mind, and all the data is stored in the neural networks and therefore in the mind. So there is an individual mind and there is a collective mind. The individual mind determines how we feel, how we experience the world, and our collective mind determines how we come across, how we behave, how we experience the world as a humanity. So with this understanding, let us take this first back to the importance of meditation at the individual level. So if you look at any kind of inquiry into the nature of the mind, we realize that the mind is composed of thoughts and feelings, and it is also the repository of our belief systems, our assumptions, um, and which is collectively called the ego. It is also the repository of our intelligence. So it has got multiple layers. But primarily, we have, as I said before, we have about 80,000 thoughts a day. And what are these thoughts? Most of us think that these thoughts are just nuisance. No, these thoughts are electrical waves that is continuously moving through our neural network, listening for looking for any kind of input. So our neural network, or we can call it the mind, is connected to our senses, the five windows that we have to the external world. So let's say the brain is enclosed in this dark space, and the way it understands the world is through our five senses of sight, sound, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. These are the only five inputs that we have, and any input from these five organs of perception, they go through the neural network. It is captured instantaneously, it goes to the central processing unit, and then it is evaluated for what it is. So I'll give you a simple example. It may sound a little uh, you know confusing in the beginning. For example, when we see something, like we see a tree in our garden, so what happens? The act of seeing is nothing but the eyes, the two eyes taking a picture of the tree, a photograph. And when we capture the image, it is sent through our neural network into our visual cortex, which is behind the head, and there it is processed to see what is it. So the image is sent in an inverted fashion into our visual cortex, and the database is searched, and it determines it's a tree. Oh yeah, it's a tree. So our brain is sitting in a dark place, and the image is received, it is interpreting it as a tree, and then we are able to see the tree. So where do we really see the tree? We see the tree in our mind. But what about the tree out there? The tree out there is a projection in our mind. So, as I told you, this can be very confusing, but think about it. So all this is happening within our system. And then that is why we say we create our reality. We create our spatial awareness. So coming back to this idea that thoughts are continuously coursing through our system to to get the inputs, and the input need not be from the external environment, but it also could be from our internal environment, like our stored memories and experiences. So let's look at an example. Uh, Example of a caveman. He comes out of his cave early in the morning, and he looks around and he sees a rustling in the bushes, and immediately he is alerted and he thinks, probably it's a tiger. Even before he thinks it's a tiger, the messages, the inputs are sent to the brain. The amygdala interprets it, and based on his experience, it conveys the message that it is a tiger. But how does it convey the message? The thoughts are the language of the body, but the body of the mind, of the brain, but the body doesn't understand thoughts. So what it does is the amygdala instructs the release of certain neurochemicals, which then releases certain hormones in the body. So if, let's say, if adrenaline is released, then depending on the circumstances, there is either a fight impulse or a flight impulse. You either, so he sees the tiger and he runs back into the cave. That is flight. His the adrenaline pumps blood into his leg and into his eyes and into his heart to allow him to run back into the cave. But if, let's say, his little young child playfully ran towards the tiger, then instead of running back, he would have screamed and run towards the child to save it from the tiger. So the hormone that is released is a variation of you know the adrenaline. It is noradrenaline that allows the man to fight the tiger. So his hands get a lot of blood, and there is courage in his heart. So you see, much of our responses to dangers or anything, any input, any stimulus, comes from the release of the hormones. The hormones dictate how we respond to things. And this is subconscious. So most of our responses, reactions are subconscious, so we have no control over it. And that is why you see people losing their temper, people, behaving in ways that they regret later on, because there is no pause between the stimulus and the response. So back to the basics. Thoughts, if thoughts are the language of the brain or the mind, then emotions are the language of the body. That is how the body is communicated, that hey, there is a problem here, run. There's a problem here, fight. There's a problem here, freeze. There's a problem here, laugh. Not a problem. There's something to laugh, to be happy about. So we have what is called this autonomic nervous system. It consists of a sympathetic mode and a parasympathetic mode. If it is, when there is danger, when there is arousal, the sympathetic mode is aroused. And when everything is quiet, the parasympathetic mode is activated, and we feel happy. There is homeostasis. So again, these are, subconscious processes. And we also have what is called a neuroendocrine system, which determines how negative or positive our emotions are. If cortisol is released into our system, we feel negative, we feel anxious, we feel angry, we feel upset. But if DHEA is released, then we feel positive. So there is this axis of the autonomic nervous system and the neuroendocrine system, which determines our state of mind. But my point is, it is all subconscious. So why are we talking about it here? Because through meditation, we can expand that spectrum of consciousness, because they say our consciousness is less than 5% of the total available consciousness, which is a kind of theory that came from psychology. But the ancient teachers talk about consciousness as a layer between two massive domains. One is the domain of the subconscious, which is which is much much bigger than this thin layer of consciousness that we have. And then there is the domain of the superconscious, where we become more and more aware of things have become, the mysteries of the world are revealed to us. So meditation is a way of expanding our consciousness, so that we are able to create a pause between stimulus and response. And when there is a pause between stimulus and response, we are able to change our behavior. We are able to control our behavior. We are able to regulate our behavior. And this is, called uh, emotional intelligence, where through self-awareness, we are able to bring self-transformation, self-regulation, and self-motivation, the motivation to act, not just the release of hormones, but a conscious ability to act. And of course, the other two capabilities of emotional intelligence is social awareness, or commonly known as empathy, and social skills, which is nothing but relationship building and relationship management. So these are some of the benefits of meditation. But it is much more, because if you really look at it, the mind emanates from consciousness. And of course, this wisdom or knowledge about consciousness has been existing in the human traditions for many many years. But it is quantum physics that has really caught our attention, as far as consciousness is concerned, through the what do you call, the observer effect. I'm sure most of you have heard about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where a particle could be a particle or a wave at the same time. And it is difficult to predict whether it is going to be a particle or it is going to be a wave. So, it is uh, like in an atom, the electrons, when you observe, they neatly, move around in certain orbits. But when you don't look at it, when you don't observe, it is in a state of potential. So this is what quantum physics or quantum science has revealed. It is like our children. When you watch them, they are doing homework. When you don't watch them, they could be doing anything, right? We don't even know what they're doing. So this is called the observer effect. Of course, there is a joke, but the observer effect is serious. So this principle was known even prior to science by the ancient meditators. They knew that just by observing in a particular way, the mind would transform itself, right? And that is meditation, observing in a particular way. And we will talk about it so in detail. So we talked about uh, you know meditation as a way to expand our consciousness. So what is modern life? How do we cope up? What is happening in the modern life? So as I was saying, the Homo sapien is at least 300,000 years old, or even more, because it is 300,000 years since they came out of Africa and then moved into the rest of the world. So all this while, the human beings have been trying to exercise their ability to observe and to use the mind for for its own evolution. And we have been hunter gatherers for almost um, you know out of this 300,000 years, for 290,000 years, uh, we have been hunter gatherers. It is in the last 10,000 years that the human has learned agriculture to tame you know crops. And then came the agriculture revolution, then came the industrial revolution, then came the technology revolution, in the last 50 years. And now we are in the midst of a cocktail of revolutions, including, and of the most important thing being the social media. The social media is such a revolution, such a paradigm shift, that the boomers don't even understand what it is all about. They don't understand that our young ones, our youth, they have a digital personality which is much more important to them than their physical personalities. Even I have a junior at home, and I've been watching my children, and I know that their personality is to a large extent um, influenced by the social media. Their decision making is influenced by the social media. And then there is virtual reality, and then there is artificial intelligence, and there is autonomous driving, and there is, you know, um, big data, and all these innovations that are hitting us simultaneously. But are we ready for it? Is the humankind ready for these changes? And the answer is no. And that is why we are under continuous stress. There is a tremendous amount of stress in our life. So, but what do we do with it? Right? What is the recourse that we have? The recourse is meditation. And that is why probably nature developed, it anticipated these things and developed the neocortex for us to develop that capacity for to 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 accommodate, to cope with all these paradigm shifts, these tremendous changes. And this ability to create the mind 2.0 will come through meditation, and that is the purpose, and that is the reason why we have been given this gift of meditation. So we are fighting an invisible war. We are at war with ourselves, right? Since we are not able to cope with it, whether it is multitasking, whether it is, a tremendous amount of expectations that we have about ourselves and others have about us, and the influence of the mainstream media and the social media. Each time we watch TV, each time we watch news, it is affecting our state of mind, whether we realize it or not. So this immense stress that we are going through, it is creating a lot of dissonance within us. that there is, and the collateral damage of this war is our emotional state, our peace of mind, our relationships, and it affects us not only individually but at the collective level. At the collective level, this stress leads to a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, which is a term that is used by the military, VUCA world, which results in racial uh, issues, uh, you know, the various problems that we have uh, within communities, within nations, and within the world itself. In fact, we are right now uh, recklessly destroying the resources of nature. Whether we believe in climate change or not, it's a fact that some of the species have become extinct, and the world is becoming a very different place for us to live in, unless we find other planets where we can inhabit, uh, you know in the near or distant future. So all this is adding, the individual stress is adding to the world stress, and vice versa. And the result is, of course, that stress has become the world epidemic of the 21st century. And according to the World Economic Forum, there are 700 million people with mental disorders, which is nothing but the after effect of stress, and 800,000 suicides, which is more than the combined deaths in war, murders, and natural disasters. But of course, with the exception of COVID has been much more fierce than any other natural disaster that we had since the beginning of time. And then, of course, adult mental disorders. 75% of the disorders come before 24 years, and 50% of mental disorders come by the age of 14, which is, which is frightening. And the cost of depression and anxiety disorders is about $1 trillion annually for the global economy. And loneliness, it's an epidemic. Most people feel that nobody knows them well. They feel alone. They feel a lack of companionship. Their relationships are not meaningful. They are isolated from others, and they feel they are not close to anybody. They feel lonely, alone in this world of teeming masses, and and loneliness leads to depression. It leads to all kinds of other problems. So, um, having said that, how do we better understand and practice meditation? And we talked about meditation as the only viable way in which we can really bring about changes to our mind, which is where the battle is raging. And the first thing that we have to do, in my opinion, is to remove all our misunderstandings about meditation. There are a lot of misunderstandings that have been spread by multiple agencies. One of them, like I told you before, is that it is difficult. It is not difficult. It is very easy, as we shall see in the next few minutes. And the second thing is that it is expensive to learn. No, meditation is available free of cost for anybody who wants to do it. And the Heartfulness Institute is committed to that, to bring the gift of meditation to anybody who wants to learn meditation. So, once these two misunderstandings are removed, our resistance to meditation goes away. And the next step is, and one of the ways in which we can convince ourselves is, to watch all the news that is available, the scientific research, the uh, the experiences of individuals who have actually practiced meditation. Once we have done that, the second step is to devote the time, to commit to ourselves to devote the time. It could be 10 minutes to start with, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And 30 minutes of meditation can substantially change our mind, especially if you practice a system like heartfulness, which is very, very effective, as we shall shortly talk about. And the third thing is not to, to make this into a habit. It is not enough to do it once or twice, but to do it on a regular basis. It has to become a way of life. It has to become something that we do every day. And as far as the heartfulness practices are concerned, there are four practices, fundamental practices. Since we are made up of the body, the mind, the psyche, and the spirit, that's a complete being. So heartfulness has an exercise for each of these, a practice for each of these dimensions of our being. So there is something called relaxation, which is to prepare the body for meditation. Through the relaxation process, we release the various tensions in the body through a process of uh, you know accessing the energies of nature and releasing the tension, so that we can sit for that half an hour or 15 minutes or 20 minutes in meditation. And in heartfulness, we don't use any external you know crutches. We don't use music or anything else. We sit in a comfortable position and meditate. And the second part is, of course, meditation. Meditation is a way, as we have discovered through this session, it's a way of changing our consciousness. And consciousness is nothing but the fundamental ground of being from which everything emanates, including the mind. So, it is, science has still not uh, been able to observe consciousness, but, quantum science has conclusively proved that there is something called consciousness, which is the foundational substance of the universe. Even the fundamental particles emanate from consciousness. So, if we can access our consciousness through a quantum process, then we can reconfigure our mind. So that is what meditation does. And then there is a process called cleansing. Cleansing is a way to refurbish, reconfigure our psyche, because we are uh, impacted by all the conditioning, all the fear, all the programming, all the belief systems that we hold within ourselves. If we continue to hold those things, then we cannot progress. Our consciousness is then what you call wound up, right? It is all knotted up. So if we are able to release these impressions that are formed in our psyche through our own experiences, thoughts, and emotions on a daily basis, it's a method, it is a technology called cleansing, and it is very simple to learn, very simple to learn. And the fourth is, of course, prayer. And when I say prayer, please don't think about, you know, kneeling down to some higher power. That also is prayer. There's nothing wrong with that. But the prayer that I am referring to is connecting with our own highest potential. And as we discussed, at one level, we are the body, and at a different level, we are pure energy, we are mind, and at a higher level, we are spirit. Or we can look at the other way, that right, the deep essence of us is spirit, which is our highest level of vibration, our highest level of being, what we call the self. And then there is the mind, which is in between the self and the body. And then there is the external creation that is outside of us. So heartfulness tradition or heartfulness practices, it addresses the body, the mind, the psyche, and the spirit. And if we do it on a regular basis, we can see those changes within us, and we will see everything changing around us, our families, our friends, our life situations, and the world itself, and humanity, and the world, and the universe will change as we change. And if sufficient people, a certain number of people meditate, then an egregore is created that has the ability to transform the human condition, the human DNA itself. And so I invite you uh, to join me in a very short meditation at the end of this session. But before I go into that, I just want to summarize what we discussed so far. That meditation is a technology that even predates science. Science is beginning to understand this technology, like science is beginning to understand gravity. We still haven't fully mastered gravity, though. Sir Isaac Newton discovered it, in 1600 and whatever it is, the 17th century, right? So, but that does not prevent us to try it out because it is a quantum experiment, and the quantum experiment has to be done by us, because in this quantum experiment of transforming ourselves through the power of observation, where we are the experiment, we are the experimenter, and we are the result of the experiment, and only we can experience this change. Only we can attest to this change individually. Others may not see it. Of course, they may become aware of it as we change, because when we become happy, when we become peaceful, when we become compassionate, and most importantly, when we lose our fear, right? When we are able to move freely in this world, knowing that we are indestructible, immortal, then everything around us will change. So with this, I invite you to sit by yourself, and I will just give you the instructions for meditation, and now you'll know how simple it is. So once you're settled down in a comfortable position, and you can do this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, even up to an hour if you have the time and the inclination, you make a thought or just a suggestion. It is a very subtle suggestion that all your attention is focused on the source of light that is present in your heart. So just imagine that there is a divine presence in your heart, and your attention is focused on that divine presence, that divine light, and you are standing back and observing it. So that is self-awareness, right? So we are using two faculties of the mind. One faculty is that of attention, and the other bigger faculty is that of awareness, which is the a quality of consciousness, awareness, right? And if thoughts come, just ignore them. So think of yourself as the blue sky, and thoughts as clouds that pass by. The thoughts don't affect the blue sky, it remains the blue sky, right? So if in the process of meditation, if your mind wanders, if your attention wanders, just gently bring it back, because your awareness, the light of your awareness is on, right? If that also goes away, then you have to bring it back, correct? So that is meditation. And if you do it every day, many times, over a period of time, you become a master at this. The ability to manage your attention, and the ability to pay attention, and with with awareness, and that will completely change your mental configuration, your state of mind. It is so powerful that it is unbelievable. So please, I invite you to do this. If you have the time now, do it for as long as you can. And if you don't have the time now, then you can do it at some other point of time. And I want to thank you all for participating in this session, and I hope you all enjoyed it and benefited from it. And if you have any questions, you can definitely go to the Heartfulness website. All this information is available there. It's a non-profit organization. It doesn't charge for meditation. There's an app called Hearts app, which you can download from your, stores, whether it is Google or Apple. And you can go to Heartfulness magazine, which has a lot of articles explaining the various facets of meditation. And you can even download the earlier issues, all free of cost. With that, I wish you all the best, and we'll see you some other time. Thanks a lot.